Welcome to Dose of Social, your recipe for social media success. I'm Lindsay Mauk,
I'm Kayla Pearlstein.
and this is
Dose
Dose
of
of
Social.
Social.
I'm very excited today to announce our special guest, but also this is a very exciting moment for me because I have both of my mentors on this episode today. But Mimi Banks is the founder of MB Social. So Mimi, thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited to talk all things social media with you.
Thanks for having me.
So Mimi and I actually met a couple of years ago, I think off of Upwork originally.
That's before I got banned, yeah.
Yeah. She was living in New York. We started working together during COVID because I remember our Zoom calls. She would open the windows so we could hear everybody outside. But she ended up moving to LA and we got to work together in person. And I learned a lot from her as well as working with Lindsay. So super excited to start this conversation with you. I'd love for you to introduce yourself to our followers and kind of share a little bit more about your background as well.
Sure. So thank you for that kind introduction. I was so lucky to meet you on Upwork. And yes, I tried to take our relationship off of Upwork, which they did not like. And then I got in trouble. But so my background is two parts. The first part was learning about business and beauty at L'Oreal. I was there for about 15 years. Spent some time in New York with a short 2-year stint in Paris. The last position that I had, which really opened my eyes to social, was creating social for the Lancome brand. And there it was my role or an opportunity to build it and make a business case why social was important. This was in 2012. And it was the most exciting day of my life when I could go in and post on Facebook for Lancome. So if that gives you any kind of context, I launched Instagram, Pinterest, and it was just the most exciting moment. And it was there that it clicked for me that not only that I understood social, but I found my passion. And because it was in 2012 through 2014, social still really wasn't mature. It was the early days, and there wasn't a lot of growth opportunities at L'Oreal. So I decided to leave and started my own business. And I basically used everything that I learned at L'Oreal from a business perspective, from a social, from networking to launch MB Social. And we have now been around for 11 years, a team of women spread across the US, Trinidad, and the UK. And we focus on four main areas. The real goal has always been how can we help? How can we make social easier for you? And over the years, our social services have expanded and evolved in the same way social has. So from anywhere from full social media management, and that's when we met Kayla, when we were only really focusing on fully outsourced social media. But then we saw a real opportunity for community management. There are large brands that have large communities and can't service their community the way that they would like to. And so we partner with those brands to help them. We also do content creation. And then through our relationships with a lot of brands, I started to meet a lot of dermatologists and dermfluencers. And again, in 2020, there was a boom of dermfluencers, and Dr. Portella asked me to help him manage his partnerships, and that began a whole division of talent. So now we have a roster of dermatologists and lifestyle influencers that we manage also.
Yeah, even from when I first started working with you, your business has grown in such a different way. It's been really cool to see.
Yeah, we've grown in ways that I didn't think about in the beginning, but also I wouldn't have thought that social would be what it is today either.
With your background in the beauty industry, how would you say that shaped the way you approach social media and brand storytelling today?
I think it completely impacts it. From a very young age, I was taught about sense of detail. I was taught about storytelling. I was taught about how you bring bands to life in a visual and meaningful way. And that translates directly into social media, no matter what industry that you're in.
Yeah, and that's so true. That was something I learned so much from you was that detail. I remember when we worked with a shoe brand and we were sitting around your dining room table the next day after one of their events, figuring out the best way to share their storytelling from an event that they just had. So,
Which is important too, because when you are only having a few squares or boxes or rectangles to be able to convey a whole world or a whole story, it's really important to what that looks like. So you can't include all the details, but you have to be able to imply them. You have to give the right hints, the right clues, and couple that with a compelling caption that really is able to pass the message that you want to pass.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good point. So, Mimi, you mentioned that your agency, MB Social, focuses heavily on community management. How do you define community in today's social media landscape?
So it's interesting, Kayla, when we first met, we used to talk all the time about social media manager versus community manager, and I don't think I had the same understanding as I do today. Community manager is the person that is the voice of the people, of the followers, of the friends, of the advocates, and the way in which a community thrives is when there is a reciprocity. There is a dynamic interaction between whether it's a brand or a business or a service, whoever's community it is, and then the people that are following it, whether they're liking and commenting, but really it's more about the sharing. Is your content resonating? Is it relevant? And when they're commenting, is someone replying back? So there's a two-way dynamic here, and then does that extend beyond social? Are you involved in the brand? How are you showing up for the brand? How does the brand show up for you?
Yeah, those are all really great points. What are some key strategies you found most effective for building and nurturing an engaged online community?
The first is showing up. So you always have to be there. You always have to respond. So that's 100% response rate. Likes, comments, shares, mentions, tags, whatever you see, making sure that you show up. The second is listening. So, really taking into account what is the community saying? What are they responding to? What are they asking? And then maybe you're adjusting your content, maybe you're reaching out to them, but showing them that somebody is there and somebody is listening. And the third is doing your best to somehow connect online and offline. So you probably have a big email list, or you may have a product or catalog, or maybe retail stores, but trying to nurture all of your different touch points, your employees, the retailers, anybody that has been a part of your brand as a whole, to nurture them into that one place is a great way to start.
Yeah, those are all really great tips.
Yeah, definitely. Show up, listen, and bridge the online and offline. I love that. Those are great. So, Mimi, for brands who are just starting out on social media today, what's the first step to creating real connection and not just building followers?
Overall, I'd like to say there's some sort of anecdote and there's some easy hack, but there's not. It's hard. It's hard to build not just a connection, but I would say even the first steps to a community. But it really starts with your content. Are you creating interesting content that will resonate with someone? And you have to just start somewhere and putting it out there. The second part is to think about having a paid strategy so you can start to amplify or boost your content to get into an audience or to get people's eyeballs on there. And then I would say part of the amplification is, do you have anybody with an audience? Can you co-post? Can you do collaboration posts? Can you start by having people who can help you amplify? Once you have people who can help you amplify and bring more people to your page or generate that awareness, then you can start to see what resonates. Then you can start to talk to them. Then you could have one-on-one conversations. This is really the long game. It's not something overnight.
Yeah, that's such a great point that I think needs to be continuously made.
So true. Let's emphasize that social media is a long game.
Yes.
Long game.
So, as brands start to grow, how can they scale community engagement without losing that personal touch?
Of prioritizing your community managers. If you have a team of people, whether it's an intern, whether it's hourly support, whether it's freelancers, to always maintain that 100% response rate. And think about how you divide up their time, making sure that there's somebody on in the morning, in the afternoon. Maybe you designate times that it's from, I don't know, 9:30 to 10:30, then again from 2:30 to 3:30, and then maybe one just more check like before you log off. Just making sure that you have designated times during the day that somebody is checking your community.
Yeah, that response time is super important when it comes to social media. So that's great to hear that you've got it sounds like you have teams around the clock doing community management for your brands.
We do. I mean, one of our services is just community management. So we organize it by those shifts and to make sure that there's always at least two people. So if somebody gets sick or something happens, that there's always somebody that knows your brand inside and out.
So how do you help brands discover and tell their unique story online?
A lot of it comes from your DNA. So a brand start with a purpose. A brand start with a reason for being and a why. And we look at their why and think about what that actually means in real life, what the goal they're trying to serve, what the problem, what the white space is, and work together with them to help clearly articulate what that path would be. From there, you're able to define what we call content pillars. So, 3 or 4 key areas that they want to cover, whether it's education, product, could be their brand DNA, could be community. And then you build off of each one of those to think about what are individual stories. So, for example, if it's your brand DNA, what's your point of difference? Maybe it's the place where you're from. Maybe it's your ingredients. Maybe it's your reason for being. Maybe it's your founder. But to look at each one of those content pillars and to be able to then expand on different stories.
Yeah, content pillars are so important for social.
Yeah.
But it helps, gives you structure too and a framework, because sometimes if you look at social and it just looks like a mishmash, then there's no strategy. Some social is, the strategy is no strategy. Other social is, it's just a place for our community. So you'll only see community posts. Some it's just education. Some it's super high res and we just want to have beautiful imagery. So you can usually see what someone's strategy is pretty clearly on social.
Yeah, that's a really good point too. And I feel like people kind of go a little more into mayhem on TikTok with less of a strategy and just more craziness, is from what I've seen.
And I think the goal is a little bit different on TikTok also, because it's about that edutainment, it's about fun, and it's about really relating and engaging. So if it's overly thought out, you end up with a video that doesn't resonate, with a video that you've probably spent too much time producing, that's gone through too many iterations. And by the time it gets to TikTok, you've either missed the trend, it doesn't relate, and it might just flop.
So, what role would you say authenticity plays in content creation today, especially with the rise of AI generated content?
That's so interesting. I think it's about being transparent. So we were just having this conversation. It's really important to be authentic. It's really important that your community knows who you are, what you stand for. And when it's AI, everybody can know. So it's having fun, understanding that you're having fun, understanding that maybe this is very, very different and almost surreal. So it looks like AI. And, in my world of beauty consumers are very smart. There's AI bots, there's AI influencers. I would never use them because that's just a whole other level. But I think it's really about transparency these days.
Brands should actually disclose in the future,
Mhm.
like whether something is AI generated or not, or
Totally.
there should be some sort of regulation around that type of content going forward where brands are required to disclose.
I agree. TikTok has a platform that I learned about called TikTok Symphony, where you can actually make content. And if you use Symphony to make the content, there is something in the bottom that says this is AI generated. So the disclosure is actually there, but it's very small and you probably will miss it. But again, TikTok Symphony is super interesting. I will say AI could be good for a lot of things. If you're looking for hooks, if you're looking for content ideas, if you need help with creativity or brainstorming, AI can be a great tool. But in our world of social, you always have to have the human touch. There are
Yeah.
tools for AI for community management, but that's not 100%. There are AI tools for comments management when you have major, major Facebook ads. Again, it always needs the human touch because if it's not a human, there's a propensity for error also that you always have to have your eyes on too. So I think you can use AI for some things, but you always need to complement it with humans.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Yeah, having that authentic, if you are going to automate making sure that you have some type of authenticity to it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, how can brands balance creating this aspirational type content with being relatable and real on social media?
I think it's about how you define it for your brand. There are brands like Lancome or the Weve who are super aspirational. It's about having brand guidelines in place. It's about having do's and don'ts. It's about when your creators are creating content, what is the look and feel? What is the environment? What kind of setting can they be in? What is the dress? How are their nails done? What is the lighting? So it's really about establishing those parameters the same way you would have for brand colors, that you have brand guidelines for your social content.
Yeah. And we've seen a lot of people that don't have brand guidelines, so that's always been a little bit of a challenge
Yep.
when working with some accounts.
Totally. So then you have to create it. We've been on accounts where we end up creating brand guidelines by virtue of the content that we start posting. And so because we post a very similar format, or we posting a lot, that's just coming from the same person, that we end up evolving the brand guidelines to be what the feed looks like.
Yeah, we've been there as well. It's surprising actually to see that too, to have a brand say, "Oh, we don't have a brand guide." You're like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah.
Well, I think
Yeah.
also some brands at social, they might have brand colors, they might have brand fonts, but social is very new, or the formats are new. So what their fonts are on Instagram may not translate to the unique font that they have for their newsletter, or what they use on a website, because it's very different. The mediums are not the same. And so the way that you're creating your website and it says shop now, you can't really use that button on social. So what is the call to action? How can you say shop now? You can do that on Facebook. You can still do that on Instagram, but there's different kinds of buttons. There's different kinds of prompts. And so it's the ability to be able to translate from one medium to the other.
Yeah. I've also seen those posts that say, what is it, the brand versus the feed? And so it's the brand with whatever their colors are, and then you see how they implement it into the social media feed.
And how does that end up?
The ones I've seen looked good.
So that's good then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, getting a little bit into influencers, we know that MB Social does everything from content creation to influencer partnerships. What trends are you seeing in the influencer space right now?
Influencers who are creators. And I think that the more you can let an influencer tell their unique story in their way, the better the content will perform on their page. So going back to spending time on overly briefing and overly controlling what an influencer or creator will do ends up impacting the overall result of the content. So if you find the right influencer who meets your brand criteria, who either is a brand fan already, which would be amazing, or has heard of your brand, or maybe is in the right demographic. Maybe it's a new mom and you want the new mom to try something, or you've seen her posts about certain challenges. So the first thing is to make sure that matches. The second is to make sure that the content would resonate with their audience, therefore giving them some creative control. Because what I'm seeing more and more of is there's a big integration between the goal of not being able to tell that something is paid versus really like advertising content that makes no sense. I think that the influencer industry is huge. And so people pass on opportunities. There's also a huge demand of big influencers. So it's very expensive. You see micro influencers, nano influencers, and also creators. So if you don't have an influencer budget, you might want to work with a creator, but the creator will give you that quality content. You just don't have their platform for the amplification.
Yeah, that's a really good point too.
What's one mistake you often see brands making when managing influencer relationships? I think you touched on this a little bit about maybe trying to control
Yeah.
the type of content too much, but anything else you can elaborate on there?
I think of two things. One is the overly briefing for sure, and having the brief too tight and too fixed, and then repeating that. And so then you get 5 influencers saying the same thing because the brief is too tight. So it's definitely far from organic. The second part is I'm a firm believer in looking at what works and then repeating it. Because if you know a formula works, do it again and again and again, because you already have it, versus keeping to try and try and try. Because if you're constantly trying and figuring out some things that work, then you're spinning kind of in the same circle. And so, for example, I've been having a conversation with one brand that we saw one influencer that knocked it out of the park. And I would say, let's do another one. But they wanted to expand and try other communities, which I can appreciate. However, I also still wanted to go back to repeat ones that did well. So that was an ongoing conversation with us to say a kind of a different point of view. I really think that someone needs to see a product 7 times for it to resonate and also to link it with the influencer. And if you see someone that beat your KPIs, that had a lot of views, that got good comments, and that also used your product, then there's an opportunity for a longer term partnership. And influencers respond very well to long.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. I remember we had a client that collaborated with an influencer for a giveaway, and they were paying what I thought was a lot for their follower count and all of their numbers. But the giveaway went really well. They had a lot of traffic to their website, but nobody actually purchased. And I had to your point, explain that just because they saw something like that and someone said shop now or whatever it was that they said, that doesn't mean they're going to purchase. They need to continue to see it.
And also, if it's a giveaway, the people that they probably engage are there for the free stuff. They're not the people who are going to be shoppers. But if they drove the views, then they should probably do more to see if it was someone that could generate more brand awareness, with then being one time when they're going to check out and they are thinking about that kind of product or service, they would think of you versus the immediate click.
And it's like the TikTok creators. That's why you keep seeing all of these eye patches or whatever it is that people are using. Because the more you see it, you're like, oh, I kind of want to buy that. It's been sitting in my cart forever, but I haven't made the decision yet.
Totally true.
And it's that repetition too, right? You want to see someone, like you said, like using that product multiple times, not just like, oh, they posted about that once. Are they really behind it? Or are they just saying it?
And consumers are really smart. They know what influencer marketing is. They know that people are paid for this. They know that who they are and what they normally post about. And so if they see a random post, maybe you're opening their eyes because they happen to see something that day. But the other thing is that maybe they're not. Maybe it's just another post that they think that they're paying for, and then they just keep going.
Yeah. So we were actually just having a conversation about this previously with how follower count isn't what people are necessarily paying attention to anymore. How do you measure success beyond just likes and follower counts?
We look at engagement and views. So when I look at a feed or somebody that we're going to work with, I start to look at like the views and also comments. I heard recently that's also about shares, because it's, the real engagement is happening behind the scenes. Like, when people send things to friends because this made me think of you for whatever reason. But on a very first level, I look at the views, because assuming that there's more real content, because I want to see how many eyeballs is it reaching, because it doesn't mean that they're all going to like it, but it means that people saw the content.
Yeah, and it reached them, right? Because reach is limited now too. So,
well, it's going to be even more limited with the algorithm changes Instagram's implementing. Again. So, how do you stay inspired and creative in such a fast-changing industry?
I would say my team. I rely on them a lot. I learn a lot from them. We have internal chats. We have Slack channels. We have team meetings, and we just chat all day long. So they inspire me to no end. Their passion, their creativity, sometimes / a lot. I would admit that I don't know a lot of the trends that are happening, but they do. They're more on it than I am. In terms of what's going on in TikTok, or even just who the new influencers are, who are the creators, who's from Love Island that we need to be following. So it's really about my team.
I'll also say I'm still in the MB Social Instagram chat, and I love seeing all the things that get sent through there, because sometimes I'll see it there before I see it online. So I'm like, oh, need to save that.
That's cool.
I love that. So, Mimi, you've shared so much great information with our audience today. Thank you so much. What is one piece of advice that you would give to small business owners who are trying to manage social media themselves and who are not necessarily ready for an agency quite yet?
Two things. The first is to just start. Um, just start, see what works, see what you're capable of. The other is to find 2 or 3 accounts that you think are doing a good job and follow them. Whether it's similar accounts in your industry, in your location, or accounts that you just really like that you think that you can be like, and follow them. Look at what they're doing. Look at the content that they're doing. Look at how often they're posting. Look at their captions. Look at the types of content. And then see if you can do anything similar and see what that looks like. Because the best thing for you to do is start to see what does good look like to you. And from there, you can build.
I love that. That's great advice. Thank you.
Yeah. And Mimi, where can our listeners go to learn more about you or MB Social?
So you can go to mbsocial.com and you can follow us on Instagram at mbsocial.agency or me at Mimi Banks on Instagram.
Amazing. Thank you again so much for joining us. This was a lot of fun talking all things social with you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mimi, for joining us today. Great to meet you.
So nice to meet you. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it. I love talking all things social, especially with you, Kayla, and lovely to meet you, Lindsay.
All right. Well, thank you so much again, Mimi. Thank you to our audience for listening to Dose of Social. We're out.
Bye.